pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. So Jesus was out in this mountain praying, seeking guidance from God. I want to say something right there. If praying is not below the Son of God, why is it below some Christians? People tell you all the time, well, I'll pray for you, and then that'll be the end of that. I try to make it a habit. If I tell somebody I'm going to pray for them, I'm doing it right then. The other day, I was being nosy and reading Brittany's text messages. I can't remember who she was texting, who was texting her, but she says, I'm praying for you. She set her phone down, she walks behind me. I see the message, and I said, Brittany, don't tell somebody that unless you're praying. She's like, amen. She's literally praying for me. And I was going to fuss at her and tell her, hey, don't you tell somebody you're going to pray for them if you're not praying for them. And there she was. She just got done telling them she was going to pray. And there I was thinking, people just don't do that. And I know in the past that's something I've been particularly guilty of. But then I fell under conviction about that. So now, if I tell you I'm going to pray for you, you better believe it's probably going to be with that next breath. If it was good enough for the Son of God, it's got to be good enough for me. We're back in John 6, verse 17. It says, and entered into a ship and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was now dark, and Jesus was not come to them. Jesus wasn't come to them because Jesus was up in the mountain praying. They're doing business with the Father. And the disciples, they were now aboard a boat, and they were in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. I told you this morning that Sea of Galilee is a freshwater lake. A good portion of Israel draws their drinking water from it. It's got multiple names. I believe there's 8 of them. And the sea arose by reason of a great wind that blew. So when they had rowed about 25 or 30 furlongs, they see Jesus walking on the sea and drawing nigh to the ship, and they were afraid. So I want you to picture this for me for a second. A furlong is 220 yards. I'm glad I remember that because I didn't write it in my notes. It's 220 yards a furlong, or 660 feet. So to put that into perspective for you, that's 2 1/5 football field is a furlong. So 220 yards. There are 25 or 30 furlongs out into the middle of the Sea of Galilee. So they're somewhere between 5,500 and 600 or 6,600 yards. They're somewhere close to 3.5 miles out on the water. Now imagine this. You're 3.5 miles out on the water. The Bible says that. Where does it say it? I think it says it in Matthew. We'll look at it somewhere else. But we're looking at it was late at night, approximately 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. They're out there on the water. They're about 3.5 miles out into the Sea of Galilee. It's a storm. The storm's rocking the boat. It's getting crazy out there. Everybody's getting wet. Everybody's getting scared to death of what's happening here. Then all of a sudden, lo and behold, here comes something out there walking on the water towards you. Imagine what has to be running through these people's mind. And at first off, they're thinking they're going to die with the storm, but then all of a sudden something's walking on the water towards them. I would be just a little bit panicked, I believe. Matthew 14:24 and 26 says, but the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, this is how we know it's between 3 and 6 a.m. In the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went up to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. So they're scared to death. This spirit, what they think is a spirit, is walking towards them. They're in the middle of the sea. They're 3.5 miles out there. It's in the middle of the storm. And all of a sudden, this figure is now walking towards them. That sounds like something that Hollywood will do a good job of portraying. Hollywood, every now and then, they get it right when they're trying to scare somebody. But imagine that figure. Who in here catfishes? Could you imagine being out there catfishing and someone walking across the water towards you? All the ghost stories of Buford. Ain't no telling what this fellow is walking across the water. You're out there catfishing in the middle of the night. I don't know a good old redneck boy that won't be scared to death if something didn't walk across the water at him in the middle of the night. And I also don't know redneck boys that don't tote guns up there either. And they'd still be scared. What is this walking across the water? Here they are, 3.5 miles out in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the storm. Here it comes, walking across the water. But he saith unto them, It is I, be not afraid. Then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went. Now, the book of John, it does a great job of, it does its job of focusing on the humanity of Jesus Christ, while the book of Matthew directs us towards the deity. Specifically, the book of Matthew gives us a few more details about the miracles that took place in this time period. In Matthew 14:27 and 33, we have the same account, but now we're speaking of the actual miracle that took place, not just the walking on the water. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me! And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and called him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were coming to the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. Now, I can only imagine at this point what's taking place in this boat. I can only imagine how these men, they're out there, the seas just beating the boat to death. I can only imagine the waves crashing down on this thing. The monstrous wind. I can imagine that as they're rowing across, they're trying their best to get across. They're only about 3 miles into the water, 3.5 miles. First off, there's more than one miracle that takes place here. We've got the walking on the water. We've got that. Immediately after the walking on the water, they're 3.5 miles out. That's not quite putting a dent in the Sea of Galilee. And immediately, upon Jesus getting into the ship with them, they're where they're going. So there's another supernatural thing that occurs here. But let's focus on this one here. Let's focus on the walking on the water just for a second. Imagine the chaos that's going on inside of that boat. After this boat's getting rocked with waves, after they're scared to death because they see this spirit that they don't realize is Jesus yet, walking on the water, walking out headed towards them. Then it calls out to them, telling them to be of good cheer, that be not afraid, because it's I. They know that I is Jesus. They recognize that voice. This man they've been following, this Son of God they've been following, now he's walking on the water. He's defying the laws of physics. He's walking on the water in the middle of this storm. Jesus appeared to him. He had just been up in the mountains praying. I have no doubt that Jesus could feel that they were in trouble. I have no doubt that he knew that now's the time to go. And he goes, I would imagine being one of those people. And you got to think this boat had 12 people in it, and they all had different personalities. You got Peter, who, without any question of the word, the Apostle Peter, he was what I like to call sometimes a disciple. He was a little dingy. Is that the right word? A little dingy. Can you say that as a little? We don't have any blondes in here.
Yeah, you do. She colors her hair.
Peter was a little what my wife calls as a valley girl, like totally, like Like, girl, you just have no idea. Like, he's really excited all the time. Have you seen the movie Clueless? They're like, duh, as if. Peter is this. Peter has the personality where he's always putting his foot in his mouth. He's always kicking himself in the rear end just all the time. He's saying something before he should say anything. In this instance, Peter's like, well, if it's you, call me to come out into the water. And Jesus says, come on. Let's go. It's me. Come out into the water. But Peter's he's the disciple. One minute he has the faith to walk on the water. The next he's sinking in doubt. The next he's sinking. But Peter's not best known for walking on the water. If you ask people who walked on water, they're going to tell you Jesus Christ. Peter did it with him. But that's not what Peter's most famous for. Peter is most famous for denying Jesus Christ when it meant the most. I love that. Youth members just said 3 times. Denied him 3 times before the cock crowed. He's best known for denying Christ. Even as a disciple, he was dearly loved by Christ, and he held a special place among the 12. But he still was best known for denying Jesus. Then you had the Apostle Andrew. Andrew abandoned John the Baptist to become the first follower of Jesus Christ. But John didn't mind that. He knew his mission was to point people to the Messiah. And the man that Andrew had been following, he abandons him to go follow the Messiah. So Andrew was in it for the long haul. Then you have James, the brother of John. Not John the Baptist, the brother of the author of the book. He was the first one to be martyred. The first one to willingly stand up for his faith. Think about it. These are the people that are on that boat. These are the people that are scared to death. These are the people that are praying to God. These are the people that now see the Son of God walking across the water. These are the people who, before they saw this, started following him. Then you got Philip. Not much is known about Philip, but he was one of the first disciples, and he was also martyred for his death. Then you had Nathaniel, or Bartholomew, who was led to Christ by Philip and instantly became a loyal follower. You'll remember he was found underneath that fig tree, and he thought it was just amazing. And he immediately, no hesitation, goes and follows Jesus. And there was Matthew. Matthew recognized Jesus as someone worth sacrificing his life for. He immediately dropped everything after he heard 2 words from Jesus. Follow me. And he dropped everything. I told you the other day on Veterans Day that was a slogan for the infantry, and nobody was more on the front lines than Matthew. It's a pretty good crowd to have in your boat. Then there was old Doubting Thomas. This is not the guy I would have wanted to be sitting beside on the boat. Definitely not the one. Thomas, or Doubting Thomas, he took things for what they really are. You know, he's a real logical fellow. He tries to justify things with logic. And when Christ was resurrected, he was the one that had to go over and touch his wound just to make sure it was really him. So imagine what was going through Thomas's mind when Peter jumps out on the water to walk after Jesus Christ. Imagine what had to be running through his mind, because that defies everything that I know. You're going to jump out on the water. You know, Peter might not have jumped out had he been sitting beside Thomas on that boat ride. I got a feeling they were on opposite sides of that boat. Because there's no way Thomas went, nah, man. No, you're not going to jump out on the water and leave me here in the boat. All right, Peter, that's not going to happen, man. I believe he may have potentially would have held him back. And when he goes to get out on the water, that intuition that he's got, the need to question everything, he had to be just completely mind blown. But now, this guy that I've been serving with, now look at his faith. He's out there walking on water. He's defying the natural for the supernatural. Then you had the other James, Simon, and Jude. We don't know a whole lot about them. And then there was one. And there was one more on that boat. Judas Iscariot, the disciple who betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Judas had to have no doubt that Jesus was who he said he was. He's appeared on this water 3.5 miles out. He's just got done feeding the 5,000 with a miracle that kept on replenishing itself. And now Jesus is walking on water. And through his faith in the man, now Peter's walking on water. Judas Iscariot, the one that would betray Jesus Christ, had to do so having no doubt that he was the Son of God. We've got Judases that are among us. We've got Judases right now who will betray Jesus Christ for much less than a bag of 30 pieces of silver. We've got Judases living right among us that'll sell Jesus Christ out, that'll make little of him just so they can go to the next ball game. We've got people right now that won't give to the church. They'll give at a restaurant. We've got people right now that'll do any and everything to get out of serving at the church. We got plenty of Judases that are out there. We don't like to think that because, hey, they're not the reason that Christ got nailed to the cross. But if you're in here, I promise you, you're the reason that Christ was nailed to that cross. You're the reason he laid his life down. Just as much as Judas was the reason and betrayed him, it had to be done for each and every one of us. Each and every one of us can relate to Judas Iscariot almost more than any other disciple because each and every one of us share some of that blame. It's our sin Jesus died for. It had to be done. In a way, Judas should almost be celebrated as a hero. He took on a role that I don't think anybody else would have voluntarily took on the role of doing in betraying the one that they've seen walk on the water, betraying the one they've seen perform the miracles, knowing good and well who he was. And sometimes I feel sorry for Judas, but if it wouldn't have been him, it still would have happened some way or another. But think about that. Think about where we have what we should be giving to Jesus. In this case, it should have been his all, his life. Think about where we deny Jesus, and we deny him much more than Peter denied him. We sell him out. We sell him short. But it doesn't matter who's in the boat. But just like these 12 disciples, we're all on the same boat. And it doesn't matter who's in there with you. It doesn't matter about the storm. It matters about the one that controls the water. The one that can control it enough to walk on it. It matters about the one that's not bound by anything. That's not bound by sin, not bound by death, not bound by the natural or the supernatural. That's what it's about. That's the only thing that matters. And we've got to be like Peter, and we've got to jump out of the boat, and you don't have to be scared if your faith is going to be tested. You don't have to be scared if you're going to fall, because if you fall, Christ is going to be right there to grab you by the hand and say, why are you of so little faith? You don't have to fall. He's there to hold your hand through it. The day following, then, the disciples which stood on the other side of the sea saw that there was none other boat there, save that one whereunto the disciples were entered, and that Jesus went not with his disciples into the boat, but that his disciples were gone away alone. Howbeit there came other boats from Tiberias nigh unto the place where they did eat bread, after that the Lord had given thanks. Then the people therefore saw that Jesus was not there, neither his disciples. They also took shipping and came to Capernaum seeking for Jesus. So let me paint this picture for you. The disciples were sent ahead of Jesus. They left without him. They were commanded, go ahead. They went. No other boat left where they were at. Boats came to that destination. And I'm assuming, by the way the Bible's laid out here, I'm assuming that at some point people passed by their boat and noticed Jesus was not on it. And they continued on. Because people were looking for Jesus. They'd heard of this man that had healed the sick. So that he was being looked for because people wanted to be healed. I'm assuming that the disciples actually passed some of these boats where they were coming to look for Jesus. And I'm assuming that happened sometime between that 3 and 6 o'clock time period. Because no one saw him with the disciples, and no one saw him on the land. But then he appeared with the disciples, and then he appeared at the place where the disciples were going with no other way of getting there except for by boat. Now the people that had made their way to the other side without a boat, they thought, now we must go after it. And Matthew 14, 34 to 36 says, and when they were gone over, they came into the land of this is a hard word here. If you're in Matthew, I want you to look at this word. This is hard. I'm going to butcher it. You ready? Matthew 14, 34 through 36. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. I'm going to butcher it. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out unto all the country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched were made perfectly whole. These people, they were seeking out Jesus Christ because of what they could get from him. These weren't the ones that would stay around. These weren't the ones that would serve alongside. Churches are filled today with people that will come in just because of what they can get out of it. Just because of the country club mentality where church membership includes X, Y, Z. But Jesus didn't turn them away. And it's not our job to turn those people away. It's not our job to say, well, they only come when something's going on. I will state the fact that there are people that only do that. There are people that abuse the church. There are people that would have abused the relationship with Jesus Christ. You'll notice none of them have a book named after them. There's nobody in here that was a fair weather Christian. There's nobody in here that was a self-serving Christian. There's actually a book written about them. There's no place in biblical history for them. But those that were serving alongside of him for all of eternity, they're going to be recorded right here. All of their good works are recorded. What's being recorded about us as a church? What's being recorded about Eastside? What's being recorded about Britain? What's being recorded about Kent? What's being recorded about Tim? Would it be worthy? Or is it a country club mentality? Are we just seeking to touch the hem of his garment to get what we can get from it? Father God, Lord, we thank you for